Greetings and welcome, I'm Ash, and today I would like to show you why exactly you should try Dragon's Dogma. A complex, open-world RPG that will truly make you feel like you're exploring a land filled with monsters and excitement at every turn. Since nearly every single encounter requires special tactics and equipment, you're most likely going to find yourself dying fairly often. But that overwhelming feeling of satisfaction once you finally succeed in bringing down a giant beast is exactly what makes Dragon's Dogma so compelling. So if you're up for an epic journey that will see your character grow from a lowly fisherman to a nigh unstoppable dragon slayer, come and join me as I briefly go over everything that sets Dragon's Dogma apart from all the rest. Dragon's Dogma is often compared to Dark Souls, and while both games share the challenging but fair style of difficulty, their approaches are vastly different. Dark Souls primarily focuses on giving you a series of combat challenges that eventually culminate with a giant boss fight and a checkpoint. If you fail at any point during your journey, you can easily restart from the nearby bonfire and attempt to fight the same boss within, let's say, 2 minutes. Dragon's Dogma, on the other hand, has very few actual bosses, even fewer checkpoints, and a much larger world filled with all sorts of monstrosities. What this means is that each and every quest in Dragon's Dogma is a serious undertaking, because if you find yourself dying halfway through due to negligence or something else, chances are you'll be sent 10 to 15 minutes back. The difficulty might sound a bit harsh, but it gives Dragon's Dogma that feeling of adventure most RPGs lack these days. You aren't just going on a merry stroll through the woodland, you are going on an important mission that requires your utmost attention. As such, before you even think of undertaking a quest, you will need to stock up on healing supplies, magical enhancements, new gear, and even torches, because the nights in Dragon's Dogma are very dark and also full of horrors. But even when you're properly equipped and stocked up on supplies, you will still need to give your enemies the respect they deserve, since even the lowly goblins can bring you down through sheer force of numbers should you ever get overconfident. All of this makes the quests in Dragon's Dogma unique and memorable, because even though the objectives themselves might not be anything special, the journey definitely is. The other area where Dragon's Dogma differs from Dark Souls is in the ability to travel with up to 3 companions, or pawns as they're called. You will be able to create your personal pawn early in the tutorial zone, after which you will need to fill out your party with pawns recruited from other players. This is where the multiplayer aspect of Dragon's Dogma comes into play. No matter where you go, and no matter what you do, chances are you'll run into a pawn some other player created. And since your main pawn gains experience and quest knowledge while in the employ of other players, you will want to make them as appealing as humanly possible, both in terms of looks and their battlefield prowess. So don't worry about any deformed, clown-faced abominations wandering the land. Dragon's Dogma is just not that sort of game. The experience gain is self-explanatory, but the pawn's quest knowledge is far more useful than what you might expect. If your pawn helps another player solve a difficult quest, or even beat a giant monster, it'll bring with it a bunch of useful hints and tips to help you out on your other missions. This can be as simple as giving you directions towards your next objective, or as complex as executing new maneuvers against dangerous enemies. But whatever the case may be, it is almost always something you want more of. Besides simply chatting with you, all of the pawns are capable fighters in their own regard. They can choose from all 3 base classes, Fighter, Mage and Strider, which is essentially Mage, Warrior and Rogue, as well as all their improved versions. This gives pawns a wide variety of abilities they can bring to the battlefield. Everything from the nimble dashes and slashes of the Strider to the healing and destructive magics of the Mage. But these abilities aren't what makes the pawn special, it is all of the strategies and maneuvers they're able to perform. For example, if you're fighting against a weak enemy, your pawns will try to hold them down while you beat them senseless. But if you're fighting against a giant enemy, your warrior pawn, for example, can give you a helping hand by tossing you onto the beast's back, where you can do some really massive damage. These pawns might not have the most memorable dialogue given that they're basically soulless husks, but they are still one of the best and most useful companions I had the pleasure of traveling with. As for the combat itself, it is pretty much exactly what you expect from a fantasy RPG. You have strong and weak attacks, you can choose between a variety of weapons that all come with their own pros and cons, and you can also spice it all up with a bit of magic. I mostly played as a Mystic Knight, a defense-oriented combination of a mage and warrior, and throughout the entirety of my 50 or so hour playthrough, I have not once regretted my decision. But if you do end up feeling like your chosen class, or even your pawn's class, is completely boring and ineffective, worry not, as you can swap your entire build for a surprisingly small fee. The only catch is that you will need to journey to the capital city in order to do so. But honestly, you'll be spending a lot of time there anyway, so this really isn't that big of a deal. While the general combat mechanics are nothing special, Dragon's Dogma makes things a bit more unique by allowing you to climb all over your enemies. Doing so will exhaust a considerable amount of stamina from your character, given that giant ogres aren't really fans of tiny things crawling all over them, but it does give you the opportunity to unleash some truly massive damage. Just make sure you keep in mind that gravity is a thing that exists, because if a monster starts toppling over backwards, you might not want to be hanging onto its back. Let's just say that being squashed by an ogre's smelly behind is not the best way to depart this world. But out of all the things Dragon's Dogma does well, it is the monsters that are my favorite. They aren't exactly original when it comes to looks, given that most of them are generic fantasy creatures such as goblins and harpies, but they more than make up for it when it comes to combat. Wolves, for example, hunt in large packs and love to attack you from behind. Goblins are cowardly and tend to scatter all over the place when you try to go after them, while the giant monsters like ogres will try to use their size and weight advantage to annihilate you in one single punch. Or, well, even bite in some cases. All of this is fairly obvious once you fight the monster for a couple of minutes, so it never becomes annoying or overwhelming, but the fact that each enemy has their own personality makes the world much more interesting and much more dangerous. What this means in gameplay terms is that whenever you encounter a new monster, it is going to be a special occasion, and one that you'll have to approach with extreme caution. For example, the only way to find out a cockatrice is able to petrify you is to charge in there and learn on the fly, or just die trying. Eventually, you'll gain enough power and gear to make some of these monsters and mechanics trivially easy, but during the initial phase of your journey, the world is going to be one very scary but very intriguing place. I find this type of design to be amazing since you really get to see your power grow throughout the campaign. Dying to a cave filled with ogres over and over again is frustrating, I'll be the first one to admit that, but when you finally come back a few hours later and just steamroll through them, the feeling is quite exquisite. The final and perhaps most controversial thing I would like to talk about is the story. Dragon's Dogma is not written or even structured like most other RPGs, so if you're planning to play it just for the story alone, I'm afraid you might leave disappointed. Mind you, the story isn't bad, it's just told in an extremely strange and convoluted way that requires almost 100% completion to fully understand. Ironically, it starts off extremely strong as a giant dragon flies in from the middle of nowhere and just straight up cuts your heart out. What follows next is a journey to uncover what exactly being a seemingly undying Arisen is all about, and how one mere mortal could ever hope to fight a gigantic, nearly godlike dragon. However, after the initial few story quests, all of the intrigue and excitement quickly gets replaced with mundane side quests, boring politics, and characters that only really exist to dish out even more side quests. If this was the whole story, I would just call it terrible and move on with my life. But Dragon's Dogma pulls a complete 180 later in the game and starts going into Lovecraftian territory of all places. I won't comment on any specifics since I want to avoid spoilers, but let's just say that once I was finished with Dragon's Dogma, I was left excited, confused, depressed, and relieved all at the same time. It really is a unique and interesting ending. It's just a shame that getting to it is such a chore from a narrative standpoint. The gameplay is thankfully strong enough to carry the story through some of its most confusing parts, so don't worry about the strange narrative ruining your playthrough. It honestly won't. Dragon's Dogma truly is a one-of-a-kind game. When compared to most other RPGs, it doesn't excel in any one specific area, but the combination of all of its elements makes for some of the most fun adventuring I've seen in quite a while. So, if you're up for a journey across a vast and dangerous world that will simultaneously excite and frustrate you, I do believe you should try Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen. Thank you guys for watching, and if you enjoyed this, or even if you didn't, please do let me know. And with that said, I hope you guys have a nice day, and I'll see you soon. See ya!